Oh boy. Here we go again with Assassin's Creed Shadows. This was supposed to be like the one of the greatest Assassin's Creeds ever. We waited like 20 years for Assassin's Creed Shadows just for it to have some of the most controversial shit just stacked on top of everything. Ah. Okay. So apparently Japan's probably going to boycott Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's a TLDR. Let's go into exactly what was posted and what Ubisoft themselves were saying on the topic. I'm gonna make myself a little bit bigger here. So let's go into it. Let's check it out. So the Assassin's Creed Shadows team has a message for our Japanese community. So the backstory of this is basically Japan is refuting what Ubisoft is selling, pretty much. Of Yasuke being like this black samurai guy. Majority of everybody in Japan and a lot of history buffs around the world, they're all saying the same thing. Yasuke was not really a samurai, and Ubisoft is just trying to kind of go into this thing with like, hey, there's a black guy in history that's a historical figure. Let's make him a main character. First time ever of a historical figure being a main character. So of course they have to do that. Um, and there is reasons why they did this. We know there is. There is a little DEI practice. It's a thing. It's in the gaming industry. It sucks, especially with Ubisoft. On their front pages, they promote this stuff. So let's check out the PR team that is trying to do damage control right now. To our esteemed Japanese community, a message from the Assassin's Creed Shadows development team. First, we want to express our heartfelt thanks for all your support for the Assassin's Creed series, which has its own history spanning over almost 20 years. I thought it was about 20 years. Over this time, we have explored various settings, time periods, and characters, from an assassin during the Third Crusades to a Viking in 9th century England. Those are very good ones. And countless more. Ezio, Italy. Let's go. For many of our team, creating an Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan has been a long cherished dream, and for majority of all of us Assassin's Creed fans, that's a dream project. Also, we've all been clamoring for Assassin's Creed Japan for a long time. Since the announcement of Assassin's Creed Shadows, we have received many positive reactions, positive reactions, but also some criticism, including from you, our Japanese players. Straight from Japan. And the game is set in Japan, about Japan. We share your passion for history and deeply respect your care for the historical and cultural integrity of our rich heritage. We would like to address a few points to clarify our intentions and creative decisions. Maybe it should be called differences of the decisions, but let's go into this. Overall and authenticity efforts. Well, this gets good. This gets really good. Here we go. So we have put significant effort into ensuring our immersive and respectful representation of feudal Japan, except for you couldn't add like an actual Japanese guy as a samurai in there. Okay. However, our intention has never been to present any of our Assassin's Creed games, including Assassin's Creed Shadows, as factual representations of history or historical characters. So in one way, this is true because there is a splash screen at the start of every single Assassin's Creed that's ever been made. It says, the people in this don't represent the actual factual people that, lived in history and all that stuff. We are a team made up of diverse developers, and all viewpoints are of our own and all that stuff. I've seen it for years and years and years. That's kind of the gist of what it says. So yes, that is true, but also Ubisoft is the ones that work with Discovery Channel to do Discovery Tours, which actually teachers use in schools and everything to teach a virtual history book of the actual history of everything, factual history. So they have been playing both sides of the fence for many years. This is technically true, but the whole thing around Assassin's Creed, like the gimmick of it, the selling point of it is literally it's a virtual history book. The thing of that is, the caveat in that virtual history book is just like real history books, really, is there is now mythological creatures in it and everything else. So it's not exactly one to one with history. They can get away with kind of saying that. So Assassin's Creed Shadows is first and foremost designed to be an entertaining video game that tells a compelling historical fiction set in feudal Japan. Our team extensively collaborated with external consultants, historians, researchers, and internal teams at Ubisoft Japan to inform our creative choices. Now, I think that part of this thing is kind of a little bit blowing smoke up everyone's ass. So, external consultants, I would say, is probably a DEI team, like a DEI group of some kind that is like, okay, well, there should be at least one either gay. Well, okay, so it's set in Japan, so you're gonna have diversity there, but there should be at least one gay character in there. Maybe one person of color should be in there, Yasuke. And it should be representation of all these different groups, and they give them the list and all that stuff. That stuff happens all the time, and there's like hell to be paid with these companies if they don't go off from that list of demands. So historians, researchers, internal teams at Ubisoft Japan. So I'm thinking basically the heads at the main HQ branch, which is pretty much Canada's, and that's the reason why Ubisoft is in all this stuff, because it is a very Canadian, French and Canadian development team, and we all know the politics that's going on in France and Canada right now as of the recording of this. So I think it's their internal historians, researchers, and that is the internal teams of Ubisoft that they're talking about there. They're not actually talking about like we went to Japan and talked with historical researchers and everything about feudal Japan. I don't think it was that. Unfortunately, because it should be, but I don't think that's exactly what Ubisoft did. So let's go. There's more. Oh, there's more. 3 out of 4 here. Let's go. Despite these sustained efforts, we acknowledge that some elements in our promotional material, the promotional material that is literally the game itself, that promotional material, the gameplay trailers, have caused concerns within the Japanese community. For this, we sincerely apologize. All game footage presented so far is in development, and the game will keep evolving until launch. You guys have like 4 months until launch. The story is not changing. The characters are not changing. Like, you should have put this out there and got feelers on the whole thing in a teaser form. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, back when Valhalla was done, Norwood. That's when all this stuff should have came out, and get a feel of like, do people really, are people going to notice a black samurai? Is this going to be an issue? Because for fuck's sake, it's a black samurai. Come on. Sure, he's a historical figure and all that stuff. I get it. He's been in other media and everything else, but what, especially for Japan, what they have been looking for and been wanting and been asking for is a Japanese rep in the Assassins lineup. Because basically, what we have Vikings, we have Ezio from Italy, we have Desmond Miles from the modern day. Like we've had all these different characters. Altair, we've had the Israeli Bazem. We've had I'm pretty sure it's Israeli. Sorry if I butchered that one. I'm Jerusalem, isn't it? Wait. Oh geez. I'm think I'm getting one or two of the assassins mixed up. It's been almost 20 years and like 50 different freaking Assassin's Creed games. There's so many different assassins. So, geez, maybe the Japanese community really wanted to see a guy that is representative of their homeland. That's from their homeland. Now, you can say that the Shinobi, which also they get into Naoi, is that representative, but again, it's a freaking samurai. Anyways, all right. So, based on the constructive criticism we have received, we will continue our effort until we put this game into your hands and beyond. We also want to clarify that while we have been consulting with many people throughout the development process, they are in no way responsible for the decisions that are taken by the creative teams in the interests of gameplay and entertainment. That might be the biggest load of BS that they are throwing at us right there. There is no way that they just no. We know way better. We see it in the game. We feel it in the writing, in the dialogue, and everything. We know exactly what's happening. There is consultants that are going in with the writing team and being like, well, maybe you should add a little bit of this into there, maybe a little bit of that into there. We know that's happening. You don't hide it. You put it right out there in the open in these games. Consequently, we respectfully request that any criticism not be directed at our collaborators, both internal and external. Ubisoft has taken this one on the job, which that's like, okay. But at the same time, Ubisoft should have had the balls enough to stand up for themselves. That's oh. So creative liberties and historical inspirations. Oh, it gets better. Oh, there's more. While we strive for authenticity in everything that we do, Assassin's Creed games are works of fiction inspired by real historical events and figures. From its inception, the series has taken creative license and incorporated fantasy elements to craft engaging and immersive experiences. Okay. I think what they're going at is the Apple Eden. I've heard this argument from other fans that when I said I didn't like Odyssey having the mythological stuff, and all of us that are like original Assassin's Creed, they're like, well, the Apple of Eden is this ridiculous thing, and it's all mythology right there. That's always been there. It's like, yes, but they also kind of in a way they kind of shaped the mythology into being like, okay, well, yes, this mythological creature was actually just this guy in a costume or whatever. They kind of shift it into that, like, it's a believable thing. When not even the Apple of Eden, it's a very shiny object, and it makes people mesmerized by the shiny object or whatever. Sure, it is kind of mythological in that aspect, and it's a work of fiction, fantasy element, if you will, in that. Um, but there's also a lot of, like, it's more or less. I never seen it as fantasy. Maybe if you consider biblical stuff fantasy, also it's like it's biblical religious stuff that they added in there that people didn't really realize was religious stuff. They kind of snuck it in there, which is the best way of doing it. No, honestly, because it's not throwing it in your face. It's just kind of there, and you're like, oh, that was interesting. Um, like, I'm not religious whatsoever. Also, I know this now later on. Now that I've heard about this, the religious side of things that's in Assassin's Creed, didn't really realize even myself back in the day when I was seeing it then. Even now, some of it goes over top of my head because, again, I don't know everything, all the nooks and crannies of all these, the Bibles and everything else. But yeah, oh boy. All right, so the representation of Yasuke in our game is an illustration of this. His unique and mysterious life made him an ideal candidate to tell an Assassin's Creed story with the setting of feudal Japan as a backdrop. So now they're trying to, this is the PR team trying to save the game, being like, okay, you guys just don't understand what we're doing, which is the wrong way to go about this, because you're just going to piss everyone off even more. It seems like Ubisoft has a very bad PR team right now, because a lot of stuff that they put out there as statements like this, they always tend to backfire, and they're always put in there of like, you're just too stupid to understand the creative vision that we're doing. And it's like, no, that's, your nose is stuck so far up in the air, it's up your own ass. You don't do that. You're just going to piss everyone off, and they're going to say, the hell with your game. You don't do that stuff. And then a lot of people's hard work goes swept underneath the rug with millions of people, because they're just like, eh. So while Yasuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. So this is where they start to kind of bring it back. We have woven this carefully into our narrative, and with our other lead character, the Japanese shinobi Naue, I said it earlier, who is equally important in the game, our dual protagonists provide players with different gameplay styles. Now, if I can play the whole game as Naue and just forget about Yasuke, and he turns into like the villain or something else or whatever, okay, it's give and take right there. It's give and take. We greatly value your feedback and encourage you to continue sharing your thoughts respectfully, though. Yeah, very respectfully. You have to be respectful. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to listen to you anyways. But hey, while we understand that meeting everyone's expectation is very difficult, we sincerely hope that when Assassin's Creed Shadows launch on November 15th, players, it's a few months away, players in Japan and around the world will appreciate the dedication, effort, and passion we have poured into it. Now, I will say, gameplay-wise, outside of all the storyline stuff, gameplay-wise, this looks like one of the best Assassin's Creeds in a long time. Storyline wise, and like the backdrop, Japan's gonna be looking real good in the backdrop of everything. Like when you're running around the map and all that stuff, it's gonna be very, very cool just to run around the map. outside of the two characters and the storyline that's going to be going in there again, I'm betting you it's going to be a lot like Odyssey, where the one that you select is the good guy that you play as, and then the other one's going to be probably the bad guy. Da 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 da. We've seen it, a handful of times now over the years with Assassin's Creeds. That's nothing new. But what I will also say is that keep your eyes out for one more launch trailer just to see, because this is it could just be the marketing team making, and the PR team just what they're showing is all the wrong stuff to show, and there might be like majority of everything in Assassin's Creed Shadows might be actually really really cool and really well done and everything. But then you have the PR team that really screws everything up because they say, again, they kind of have their nose up in the air against everybody. It's like, you don't like our game? Well, screw you. Like it's there's very different teams going on right there. You got the developers making the thing, and then you have the marketing team, which always screws up the public relations between the developers. And it's also one of those things of like, if you go and start yelling at developers will not try and push to make stuff that people want to see them, because the developers are just going to be like, oh well, if you're just going to be a screaming lunatic, I ain't going to listen to you at all. I've heard this from many developers in many different interviews and everything, say that type of stuff of like, I guarantee you, after that last trailer, anybody who's working on Assassin's Creed Shadows, they probably have privated their social media and stuff, or at least they don't actually check their social media themselves on a day-to-day basis. They have somebody else, like a management team or something, does it, because of the backlash and everything. And people can be just, in all honesty, people can be wild on social media with how just ridiculously over the top they get. At the same time, I'm not gonna back away from Ubisoft on this. Like, yes, Ubisoft is making the wrong choice. They should just stick to their guns and do what they've always done and make a protagonist be in the setting of the environment that the protagonist would be coming from. We've always seen that. That's been every single Assassin's Creed has been that way. So it is pretty rough seeing that like they went that way of like, and especially also it's like the first time they ever use a historical figure from history, and it's like this, it's done in this way of like, oh, we got you. Hey, there's this guy right here. Yeah, that's kind of a slap in the face to like all the other characters that have come before. So that's rough. That is pretty rough. And normally I'm like, you're being a little, everybody's being a little rough on Ubisoft. But in this case scenario, no, I'm actually in agreement with everyone. This is just rough to see. It's just rough to see. But again, there is a difference in between the developers and the marketing team. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with it. Anyways, that's my 2 cents on this whole thing. Hopefully everything gets squared away by the time the game comes out, and who knows, maybe I still have kind of a prediction that the Naue is going to be more or less the main character, and her master is going to be probably the Japanese assassin. That, because Naue is basically an assassin, she's a shinobi, so that fits with Assassin's Creed essentially. And I think Yasuke is going to be kind of like a side character that's just kind of there. I'm really hoping that's where the way the storyline is going. Again, I'm not going to cancel out Assassin's Creed Shadows just being like, everybody else is probably losing their minds and everything else over this. It's got 12.7 million views on this one post, and it looks like there's actually a lot more likes than there is discourse going around it. So we'll see what ends up happening of it. But for right now, that's going to do it. We'll see what ends up happening with the next Assassin's Creed Shadows trailer. We'll probably get like a launch trailer or something. I want to make a video. I want to make a launch night video and do a launch night for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think the gameplay itself is really cool, and then my expectation for the storyline is kind of down here, and it'll just build up as if it gets better, it gets better. If not, the gameplay is still pretty damn cool looking with all the like the Spider-Man tech you can do in it, and like go underneath the water with the little, it's, you can sit there and you can breathe underneath the water and all. Super cool on that stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to be fair, but also very honest with my opinion on this. Anyways, that's going to do it for this one. Assassin's Creed Shadow comes out in a few months. we'll see what ends up happening with it. So thanks for tuning in. Oh, matter of fact, the big one. Hit that subscribe button if you liking the opinion, I guess, or whatever. If you think I'm doing a fair job with this, yeah, subscribe button on YouTube helps out a lot. Trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, I will see you next time.